Okay, I think we're live. Are you okay, Adam, to start?
Yep, we're good to start.
Cool. Awesome. And welcome to TMWA Hangouts on Air. My name is Hannah Dodds and Adam Brooks is our co-host for this evening. And we're joined by Steph, Jesse and Anthony Speranza, who I think has just dropped out, but I'm sure he'll join us again soon. So I'm just going to screen share and we'll go through the order of events for tonight and then we'll get started. So, can you guys see my screen okay?
Not yet.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, loading. Yep. Yep.
Not yet.
Loading.
It's just loading.
Trying.
There you go.
I might just switch through here. So while we're presenting tonight, you might like, cool. You might like to tweet to us at WAPLN on Twitter with the hashtag TMWA. And we will also be live streaming through the Facebook group, so you can access it through there as well. Just the website if you want to access to our other teach meets out and about. And this is being recorded so you can watch it on the YouTube channel after the event this evening. So tonight's schedule, we'll have Steph presenting first, doing some STEM lessons and talking about shaping resilient problem solvers. Anthony's going next, discussing what if teachers and schools were less risk adverse. Jesse is presenting on using Malmerge for efficient student feedback and goal setting. I'm discussing flexible spaces and workflows, and Adam's going to be presenting something on his experiences as a student in project-based learning. So I'll just flick over to you guys now, and we'll just quickly introduce ourselves. So I'll flick you. So Steph, would you like to just introduce your name, where you work, and any interests and things, and your Twitter handle?
Stephanie, all good to go.
Steph?
I'm teaching at Harrisdale with Hannah at the moment.
Yep.
I'm originally from the States in Florida, and I used to do a lot of STEM projects over there with my former students and helping out the teachers, and they've gone on to competitions and all that kind of stuff and won in our district area. So I'm really keen to get STEM pushed over here in Australia and using my background knowledge to help out with that. Yeah, that's what it is.
Awesome. Thank you. Jesse, we'll flick to you. Would you like to introduce yourself quickly?
Yes. Should I start now? My name's Jessie Barber. I am a teacher at Jarrahdale Primary School up in the hills just out of Perth. I have a year 4, 5, 6 class, so I'm really interested in finding efficient and manageable ways to have a really high level of differentiation and personalised learning for the students in my class. Yes.
Great, thank you. Anthony, we'll switch to you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Anthony Speranza. I'm the ICT Learning and Teaching Leader at St Mark's Primary School, which is in Melbourne, Victoria. You can find me on Twitter at anthsperanza.com or on my blog, anthsperanza.com. One of my pastimes is to disrupt the status quo of education.
Great, thanks Anthony. And we've seen you at a lot of events in Perth and around Australia, so we're really lucky to have you tonight. Thank you for joining us. And Adam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, hopefully people know who we are by now, but my name's Adam Brooks. I'm the Digitech Coordinator at Colby Catholic College in Rockingham. And I'm a bit like Anthony. I like to disrupt education, challenge what's out there, and try new things. And that comes from my 7 years experience out in the real world, in the corporate world. So I like to try and bring some of what I've learnt there to what my students do in the classroom.
Great, thanks Adam. And my name's Hannah Dodds. I'm the Technologies and STEM leader at Harrisdale Primary School, working alongside Steph, who's been my right-hand woman in leading STEM as well. I'm a Year 4-5 teacher this year as well as that role. So we're going to get started with Steph this evening. Steph, you've got between 5 to 8 minutes. I'll set a timer, and you're discussing some of the STEM lessons that you've been doing in your classroom.
Good. All right. Well, I've decided that my big goal for this term was to push a big STEM project to take over the entire term. And I went to a PL at another school here in Perth, and what the teacher had presented with their like ICT STEM leader, she kind of did it integrated. So it wasn't just like quick challenges, is what I've seen a lot online, where you'd be like a cup challenge or like a boat challenge and building all that kind of stuff. What she did was she took an idea of a real world problem and integrated through different learning areas. And I wanted to really kind of push for that and see how that would affect with my students. So I'll show you what I started off with. If you can see my screen, which I think is over here. I started off with just like an integrated like STEAM inquiry. I know that it's a big difference or a bit of a debate between STEM versus STEAM. I know that our school, we kind of just stick with STEM. I think of it's more of a branding issue than anything, but I do push for the arts in my STEM or STEAM inquiries, just because of that creative thinking really gets the kids kind of out of their comfort zone and become better like problem solvers. So I started off with just going over the unit and thinking about what's my learning intention. And I wanted to make sure that it related to a real world problem that the kids can kind of relate to, and they can be the engineers and kind of problem solving their way through it. So I talked about just using sustainable solutions for a healthier planet and healthier people. And I got so many ideas just kind of when I went looking for an idea of what they wanted to do, just researched online. And I got a couple places different lesson plans. So I started off with a little bit of recycle robots because I wanted to try out what robots we had at the school. And we were lucky enough to get Ozobots come in, and we talked about recyclable materials and what they could use, what consider recycled materials and all that kind of stuff, and how we use it today in real life. So they made a Ozobot to act as the recycling truck, and they had to put in their coding in and to go around, and their 3 codes would represent the paper and the plastic and glass that they can see at the recycling center. When I did it, I just kind of went through, thought about the learning areas and then what I wanted to do with each lesson plan, and just a quick description. And then I wanted to make sure that there's a learning area and some kind of assessment that I would do to kind of see where they're at on it. And then it would go on to the next lesson. So I created this on my PowerPoint and used Adobe to kind of fill it in, and just made about I figured 4 projects would be best for my class, just because of time constraints. And I know that these tend to take longer than needed. But I put like an extra one at the end, like kind of like a fun exploration challenge with that. After I did all that kind of planning out and thinking what I wanted to do, I wanted to go through the learning standards and see how I integrated across curricular. So I put over here, and I teach year 3, so I focused on that. And I have all the science, design and technology, arts, mathematics, English, and HAS and other areas. So you can see that it doesn't just focus on one thing. It kind of goes cross-curricular, so you can touch different things. And a lot of the inquiry skills is really what I like to focus on with my lessons. So just kind of go with our school's lesson plan design through that. And what I found with the kids is that my group of students, being about 7 to 8 years old, they're very wanting to always just have the help from the teacher or have the help from an adult, and I want them to kind of be problem solvers on their own. And what I push for in my class is they come up with me with a question, and I tell them, did you ask yourself first, what can you do to solve the problem? And obviously in English and all that kind of stuff with your explicit teaching, it can help them out and guide them through that. But when I teach STEM or using my design technology time with this, I want them to really understand that they can solve it if they give themselves a chance. And half the time they come up with more creative ideas than I would ever do. And right now we're able to luckily move on, and we're making Go Green racers. And my kids, I find that those who struggle with focus are really engaged, and they're very excited, and they're already telling me things that they're finding at home that they can use as recyclable materials to use towards their Go Green racers. So they'll be building that this week, and hopefully they'll be able to add and tweak it. And when they're a lot of early finishers with my kids, I really push for them to go back and improve it and see what else they can work with it. And they understand that the cycle is with our design process is that it's constant and not ever going. You can never stop with it. You can always add and improve on and more of that kind of stuff. And I just think that student engagement and problem solving skills, we're good to go on that one. But that's about it.
Wow, that was really good, Steph. Thank you. As I work with Steph, obviously I know her quite closely, and she's also planning our STEM day with very similar frameworks for our whole staff and trialing things in her classroom and then innovating across the whole school. So she's doing such a good job, and she'll be so proud of all the things you're trialing. They're really amazing. Thank you. We're moving on to Anthony now, who is presenting a very interesting topic. What if teachers and schools were less risk averse? So we'll pass over to Anthony now, who's going to start presenting.
Great, thanks Hannah. Can you see my slides? Pretty sure.
Yeah. My internet's a bit slow though, so you might still be just loading for me. Oh, there we are. Beautiful.
Good to go, Anthony.
Beautiful. Okay, so thanks Hannah. So yeah, look, I'd like to share a couple of thoughts about a blog post that I wrote earlier in the year called "What if teachers and schools were less risk averse?" I want to start off by sharing a writing sample that one of my teachers handed to me from a student who was in year 4 and was given free choice writing, and they could write whatever they wanted to about their life. And this is their story they wrote. Hi, my name is censored, and this particular student has a YouTube channel, and they have 25 subscribers. The first video they did got 85 views, and that is pretty good for me, and I'm only 9 years of age, which is not too good. When I'm 15 or so, I will quit school and do YouTube. Student writes on and says, I created my channel when I was 8 years old, and as soon as it was created, I filmed the first video, which is called Introduction to My Channel, which is the one with 85 views, which I think is good for me, but I think I can do better than 85. I think I can get to 100 views. That will be good to me, that is. But I know if I try hard enough, I can get it. Now, this writing sample was really interesting for 2 reasons. First of all was this really stuck out. When I'm 15 or so, I'll quit school and do YouTube. I'd like to think that the school and my workplace that I work in, we're quite progressive school in terms of what we're doing, and the sort of opportunities and experiences that our students have, and the way in which, I've been at my school now for a decade, and I can honestly say that all of our teaching practices have evolved. But this is really surprising when a student is giving us, I guess, a little bit of insight and saying that they'll quit school and do YouTube. And another comment which was really interesting in that piece was, I know if I try hard enough, I can get it. This is interesting feedback because our school's done a lot around growth mindset. So this is good feedback for us in terms of that project. But what's worrying is that this student has a growth mindset that they want to quit school and they'd rather do YouTube. So I think that raises a question about what is that seduction around YouTube, and what is that child gravitating towards that he may not necessarily be getting in the classroom? Is it because he is obviously writing about the likes and subscribers? Is it because he's getting an authentic audience? Maybe he feels like in his classroom, no one really cares about any of his work. And so I guess that's a bit of a tension between traditional models of schooling and where technology is heading and how it's shaping the world around us, and how students are going through our educational system and how they're really, I guess, willing to stay in and play the game of education, so to speak. So in terms of content, I mean, for this particular student, access to YouTube means that they can pretty much learn whatever they want. No doubt they would be getting pretty good skills in terms of being able to connect with an audience and build a subscriber base. And this particular student is pretty motivated, I guess, to build their own channel and have a following and have subscribers. So I think the point of school can boil down to these three things as well. We need to be asking ourselves, what are we actually evolving in our classroom? What sort of content can we really integrate into meaningful ways? As we've just seen in the previous presentation, it's not compartmentalized into discrete subjects, but rather thoughtfully really designed with content and skills in mind. And I think naturally then motivation will come as well. I want to share a page from Seth Godin's Picture Story Picture Story book for adults. It's called An ABC for Grown-Ups, and it's titled V is for Vulnerable. I want to show you here the letter N, and what N stands for, according to Seth Godin, is that N is for no. No feels safe, while yes is dangerous indeed. Yes to possibility, and yes to risk. The reason why I share this is because I think about in education how many times we are willing as systems or as teachers to take risks, or are we fearful and mindful about possibly failing and possibly being looking silly in front of our students when things don't necessarily go to plan. I really think that if it's up to us to evolve our practices, we need to be willing to take risks. And if students are willing to take risks and they're the ones that are going to be developing growth mindsets, then naturally I think that as teachers ourselves, we can't possibly teach kids to have a growth mindset and to take risks unless we're willing to do that themselves. And naturally I think the wider school system and the leaders in place should also be willing to take risks in that as well. So it leads to the question then, what is the best way to innovate or to evolve our practice? And I would say that we need to take a brief moment to stop. That might seem a little bit unusual. Stopping is the antithesis to progression, but I think when we stop, we can start to ask ourselves why. And so if as educators and as school systems, we ask ourselves, why is it that a student wants to quit school and just go and do YouTube, we might start to understand and gain perspective about what's actually going on in children's lives and how technology is playing a role in that. If then we start to ask ourselves, what if, that leads itself for us to explore possibilities. So really opening up our minds and starting to discuss with colleagues, maybe starting to design a couple of experiments or short hacks that we can do in our terms to say, what if we gave students more authentic audiences? Can we use technology to bridge that medium as well? And then naturally, I like the idea borrowed from the design thinking process, how might we, because that leads itself really a bias towards action, so that we approach it and we say, look, this might work or it might not, it could fail, and if it does fail, that'd be good because we can learn from that and iterate from that process as well. So I think really if we asked ourselves these questions, genuinely asked ourselves these questions and invited ourselves to take risks, then I think ultimately our students will be the beneficiaries of that as well. You can find that post on my blog, What If Teachers and Schools Were Less Risk Averse, and I'll just tweet it out onto the stream as well if you'd like to read more about that. But other than that, thanks for listening.
Wow, thanks, Anthony. I think that's so true that we do need to take risks in order to evolve our practice, and everything you said I totally agreed with. It's very, very interesting. So thank you for presenting that. And we're now passing on to Jessie, who is presenting on using Mailmerge for efficient student feedback and goal setting. So Jessie, when you're ready, I'll pass over to you.
Yep, thank you. Amazing presentation so far. It's been really wonderful to listen to them. I just wanted to share with you all a way that I'm using technology to help me manage student data and goal setting in my class. I think a really important part of preparing students for the future is for us as teachers to be researching and finding more ways that we can do things efficiently by using technology and stepping into the 21st century. So I'm going to show you how to use Excel and the mail merge feature in Word. And I use this to help me manage and create personalised goals for writing. But it can be used in many, many different ways. And I just found it exciting because of how efficient it is. So I'm just setting up my screen share. Basically, I won't go through sort of a more detailed analysis of writing goals, but it can start as simple as setting up a quick spreadsheet in Excel. And I've got a Mac. I've got Excel for Mac and Office for Mac. But these features can be used on a PC and also through Google Spreadsheets. And I think there's an add-on or something for Google Docs. So I've got my spreadsheet, I've got my names of my students, and I've got room to add two potential writing goals that I might come up with while I'm looking through their work or while I'm conferencing with the students. So to make this, because I'm really all about efficiency, so to make this really efficient, I actually just enter keywords when I'm doing it. So hopefully my screen share is working. Hopefully you can see this here. So Batman needs to work on paragraphs and identifying, spelling mistakes and making an effort to correct them. Spider-Man needs to work on completing structured text in a time limit. Wonder Woman needs to work on consistent tense, especially in her narratives, etc. So once I've got the whole class's goals in here, I actually use the find and replace tool just to make it really quick, and I can actually find those keywords and then replace them with the statement of the goal that I want to share with the student. So the main reason I do this like this is to stop the double handling. So I now get to have a spreadsheet where I've got the whole class's goals recorded. And here you can see that's what it becomes after I've found and replaced everything. And now what I want to create is have a really efficient way of creating something that the students can print, that I can print out, that the students can have to refer to so that they're aware of their goals. So that's where Word comes in. I've got a simple example here of a template for a goals sheet. So student's name, their narrative writing goals, my goals, goal 1, goal 2. So this is different depending on which system you're using, which program you're using, but there are lots of online tutorials. It's a matter of going to Tools and Mail Merge Manager. Then it comes up allowing you to select the document type. I always just use form letters. That seems to work. And getting the list is how you link it back to your spreadsheet then. So I'm choosing my data file, my example writing data, open, and hopefully it will cope. Yes, okay. And then it lets you actually choose the sheet that the data is on. So it's fine if you're using having a lot of different sheets in your one Excel file. And it's trying to load. What's really exciting about this is once it pops up, it allows you to drag these placeholders in. Here we go. So I can choose goals 3. Okay. And now over here, the placeholders come up. So it's a matter of just dragging those in and getting rid of, so it doesn't double up. Dragging in goal 1 here, getting rid of that, and dragging in goal 2 and getting rid of that. Finally, because I don't want to have a whole A4 page for each student, I go into other placeholders and I use the next record placeholder, and then I can actually just copy and paste the rest of this down here hopefully you're getting to see all of this as I'm doing it. But otherwise, I really recommend looking at some of the mail merge tutorials. I actually then copy and paste this for the number of students that I've got in my class. So this is the really, it's a magic press of a button, and it turns this template into each student's individual writing goals. So I just pressed here, preview results, and then that is then ready to print or to put elsewhere or anything like that. So it is just extremely efficient, and it stops that double handling of data. It could be used in so many different ways, especially with recording assessment and feedback, giving back to students, and goals in this case. So I hope that helps you, and I hope that some of you can get a use like that out of it as well. I've just lost my screen. There we go. And thank you for listening.
Wow, Jessie, thank you. That was really interesting. And visible learning, I feel sometimes is quite a tricky concept to know how it will look in a classroom. So to see what you're doing is awesome, and I'm sure it will help a lot of people out there. So thank you. I'm actually presenting next, so I'll just screen share as well and quickly through. Hopefully you can see my screen there. Can you guys just let me know if you can see it?
Not yet, Hannah. It's just come up now.
It's there.
Yep.
Awesome. I'm going to be discussing evolving learning spaces, and you can tweet to me at Miss H Dodds. My website is there as well, if you want to get in touch with me regarding this. So over the last couple of years, there's a few things that have been very on trend in education world. So flexible learning spaces have become really prominent, self-paced environments, and a lot of schools are flipping toward a one-to-one bring your own device setting. So I've been really interested in these areas and developing it within my classroom. I have been slightly hesitant as well because I do have a very big Kagan cooperative learning background. So the design of a classroom has always really been more so my teacher judgment and my teacher design, as opposed to really letting the children be involved in their designed environment. So it's something that over the last year or two, I'm really interested in developing. So shifting from my very comfortable space in using a cooperative learning environment and having table settings, I decided to survey the students about what they currently liked in the space and what furniture they would prefer to use, as well as the type of instruction they like to receive. And the results of that survey were really interesting. So that they preferred to have choice and a bit more freedom to be creative. They preferred self-paced as opposed to the rotations we were doing on our tables and having to always sit in seats. And they also mentioned that they really liked getting up and moving. They liked active learning, and also the types of seating that they were sitting on. They liked things that bounced and moved around. So from there, it really eye-opened for me and made me consider, is this space actually effective at the moment for the students in the classroom, and how could I change it to be a little bit more engaging? Do a lot of research, because I always have the backing of research before I take that step, and it's really awesome because there was a lot of books regarding flexible learning, and a lot of Apple's distinguished educators as well had experiences from their own schools and classrooms through there. So I was starting to consider how I could merge both flexible learning and cooperative learning. Also, I was starting to think about the mindful selection of strategies to the tasks, and I started to think about the types of software I would be using to support the environment. Pitched it out to my kids. I said, I really need your help. I want to evolve this space. Following on from your feedback, I want you guys to enjoy being at school and to really feel comfortable. So I'm using Bayboard, which is a collaborative whiteboard app. They work together in their teams to design a flexible flexible learning space. And viewing the videos, it gave me a real sense of what furniture they wanted and how they thought it would benefit their learning. So I've got a quick video here to show you of one.
Hi, I'm Ellie, and we have created this. We have installed this table. I'm Aaliyah, and we made long tables to sit at. And I'm Freya, and we have a big couch to kind of like concentrate.
So obviously their designs were all very different. The main thing I noticed in the designs from all of the students was that they had a lot of space. And for me, I'm always quite keen on filling the space and having things very organised. So it made me realise that I needed to plan an environment that had enough space and had flexibility for tables to move, just to create different learning environments for them at different points in time. So this is kind of what our classroom looks like at the moment. I was hoping to take a photo, but I forgot last week. But it does have a lot of space, and the meeting point in the middle has a huge amount of space that we can use for different purposes, and floor seating and things like that. Shifting toward a flexible environment, I also started to consider the type of learning I was pushing out to students. And initially I did start quite openly and just kind of said to them, this is what I want you to do, off you go and do it. And I didn't realise that I would need to scaffold that a lot more explicitly for my group of students. So at the moment we're at this point in time where I'm giving them must do and may do activities and putting them in mixed ability groups so they can help each other at the moment. And the reason for doing that is because with so much freedom, having not really had it before in their years of schooling, I've had to really slowly move through into this flexible learning space. So hopefully eventually over a little bit of time, once they learn some time management skills and they get in that routine of self-managing themselves, they'll be a little bit more capable, I suppose, and independent in the space. So what's worked well so far? So far with the flexible shift, engagement is really big. A lot of them are really keen on the work that they're doing and finishing it all off. I'm finding it a lot easier to differentiate. So I use Seesaw, and what I do is push out to the groups of students and ability levels, and doing that has made it a lot easier to differentiate. And collaboration, we're slowly getting there, but having these mixed ability groups is helping with who they work with. They do have a choice of who they work with within this group, but it's just to make sure that that cooperative learning and social constructivist theory is still existent within the classroom setting. So some adaptations, I've just talked about modelling time management, and hopefully slowly we'll get to it being a lot more open and free so that they can choose a lot more at their own pace. And also the gradual release of tasks. So I've had to really slow it down and scaffold that for them. I mentioned I do use Seesaw, and it just really helps so that I can record instruction for differentiated levels. Students can refer back to videos at their own pace. They can go home and access it too, as they have one-to-one devices. And there's lots of different options for how students can feed back to me as well. So they can respond to posts, they can copy and edit, or they can create their own posts and apps with different apps, which is awesome. So moving forward from my classroom setting, we're developing our school and evolving innovative practice through all of these different things. So happy hours, we've just started a professional learning community. We've encouraged teachers to come on board with doing the Apple Teacher modules. We have coaching and support, so through myself having 2 days release time. We've just started Genius Bards run by student leaders as well. We're looking into Apple excursions for our teachers and students. And we have awesome staff like Steph and a few others who are running clubs in school time, at lunchtime, as well as out of school, so STEM club and code club and things like that. So there's some really innovative things happening at Harrisdale. So please tweet to me, and if you want any more information, please head to my website or contact me through there. And that's me done. So I'll just pass over now to Adam, who's going to be presenting a really interesting presentation about his own experiences as a student. So when you're ready, Adam, I'll pass over to you.
Thanks for that, Hannah. Just to let you know, Hannah, the slides weren't showing after about slide 3, so you might have to post those on Twitter afterwards, if that's okay with you. All right, I'm just going to share my screen now.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, my Wi-Fi's
no worries at all. Hopefully the people that are listening on Facebook Live haven't had to listen to all of my wife's storytelling for Roald Dahl to my girls next door. It's the first time we've actually ever tried to do this, so hopefully it's all working down that end. So rather than giving you a teaching experience today, I thought I'd give you one of my learning experiences when I was a student at the school that I currently teach at. This is some reflections on that experience, and it was called E-Team. That is a picture of me with hair before you all start cracking up laughing. The idea was that it was groups of 5 Year 11 students, and there were many schools involved at the time. So it was an initiative. I can't remember who was running it at the time, but we went for one day of business analysis skills training at Subiaco Oval, and it was an intensive day where we learned all those skills like Ishikawa diagrams. We learned how to do work breakdown structures, so it was some project management stuff in there. We learned the project management life cycle. We learned how to look at processes and draw flowcharts. So really useful skills. And then at the end of the day, we were allocated a real business in WA that had a real problem that needed to be solved. And we were then given 5 days, Monday to Friday, to actually try and find a solution to this problem and then present that to some key stakeholders at the business as well as from our school. So our problem was actually, we were given Western Power at the time, and they wanted to know, how can we as a company determine which power line should have their infrastructure upgraded? So you imagine at Year 11, I was about 14, 15 at the time, and it's a massive problem. Not something you'd think that you could achieve in a week's time, but this was a problem that we were actually given, and it wasn't put as eloquently as that at the time. So to give you a bit of context, this was 1997. So the computing systems at the time were lacking. There was internet available, but it was slow. There were databases in the system. We were actually on site. So we were at the Western Power in Jandakot, but we had access to everyone and everything within the company. So we had a mentor, Jim Cheetham, and he actually suggested who we might need to talk to as we were trying to solve those particular problems. And he took us up to the East Perth power plant. I don't know if that's actually there anymore. And we saw the call centres as the linesmen would call up the problems, and the power grid, and we were threatening to turn off the power at our own school, but they wouldn't let us do it. A best thing about this project is we weren't actually guided in any way to solve this problem. And so we had to try and work out how to solve this problem ourselves. Our mentor gave us some guidance about the company itself, but he didn't actually lend us any ideas on what the solution would be. And for those of you that are interested, the actual solution was they weren't getting the data in the first place. So we couldn't actually determine which lines needed the infrastructure upgraded because that data wasn't coming in. So we presented a solution which required the linesman on site to give certain information, and the call centre who were taking the calls from the linesman needed to request that information if they weren't given it. I'm not sure how well it was actually implemented, but we then gave a solution on how you would track the infrastructure problems. And I say this was before things like Google Maps and that kind of technology that was available. So you could come up with some much more interesting solutions now. The accountability. So at the end of these 5 days, we actually had to put on a professional presentation to some of the executives of Western Power within WA, as well as principals and deputy principals from our own school. So 5 year 11 students, it was a pretty daunting experience, but that made us accountable. So after 2 days of trying to figure out what the actual problem was, and the third day actually starting to figure out what the issue was, it didn't leave us much time to actually come up with a solution. So we actually had to put all of our findings together in a professionally bound document and have that printed out. And yeah, it was putting that together was highly stressful. We stayed late on the Thursday and we were putting it all together on the Friday morning before the presentations that afternoon. But despite all those disagreements and arguments and everything, we battled on as a team, and we actually we knew that we had to present on that Friday afternoon. So that made us accountable, and it made us want to continue on and try our hardest. So to give you an idea why it worked, I think I like to use this term uncomfortably challenging. And it's that zone between, if something's too challenging, we kind of hit the wall and we give up. And if something's too easy, we tend to give up because it's too easy. So there's that zone there where things are so challenging that they're actually uncomfortable for us. And knowing that Friday presentation was going to be in front of all those executives, that's what really made that uncomfortably challenging. It was high stakes. We were only, let's say, 15, 16 years old to have that tremendous responsibility to try and solve this problem. That was big for us. I think that having Jim there as a mentor was just invaluable. You know, he knew the company very well. He'd been working there a long time, and he also had some of those skills that were available. So he helped us work through how to get to the bottom of the problem. But once again, he didn't actually solve the problem for us. And I think the fact that we had the skills prior and we were encouraged to use those skills authentically through challenges, when it came to actually trying to solve the problem, we had those skills available to us. So I want to let you know how this experience actually affected me going on past high school. So I actually went on into work in the software industry for 7 years. After 18 months, I moved into a product management role, which was a lot of business analysis. So understanding customer needs, looking at current processes and trying to improve them. And so all these skills that I learned, business analysis skills, were the same things that I was using in my workplace. And so it was really invaluable, those skills that I continued on using for the rest of my my corporate life, and I still use them today. For me, this helped me understand what it meant to be a professional. So, you know, with due dates for assessments, they're a bit contrived, whereas the due date for our presentation was that Friday afternoon. So we had to have it ready. It had to be professional. We had to have that booklet of our findings, and it all had to look and feel professional. So we had to practice it, and so that to me was that the authentic side of this project. And the biggest thing for me is that this project allowed me to have purpose in life, and I realised that I could actually make change. So, you know, the presentation that we gave could potentially save this company millions of dollars. So yeah, it was really useful in that regard. And so if you're going to take this approach in your own classroom, the more authentic, the better. You know, if you can get out there and have students presenting to the wider community, that's going to make them accountable. The other thing is we focused a lot of our time on content. I highly recommend teaching skills over content. It doesn't matter if we cover all the content. We've got content available 24/7 through the internet. It's the skills that we go on to use in real life. The other thing, when we give students a problem, don't solve the problem for them. Don't hint at what the solution is. Let students be uncomfortable. Help them by asking them questions. And cross-curricular, you know, I think it's been talked about a lot tonight, that problems in real life aren't just maths, and they aren't just technology, and they aren't just science. So having this kind of cross-curricular problem, or even not curricular, forget about the curriculum and just give them a project. They're going to learn skills, they're going to learn content just by going through the process of this project. And the other big thing, as a few other people have suggested tonight, allocate time for this. There should be a time where the project is due. You know, for us that was a presentation, but it shouldn't feel rushed going through this process. So I say I'm trying to do these kind of things in my own classroom at the moment, and I think it's a really useful way of making those skills available to students that they can actually go out and use in the real world. So that's me. I'm just going to go back, and if I can get out of here, and where are you, Hannah? Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, Adam, that was really good. See why you're so passionate about project-based learning, because you've had all those amazing experiences when you were young as well. And it's so awesome to see how you applied what you did at school into your environment before you were a teacher. So thank you. Sorry about how they were paused before, but what I'll do is I'll upload my slides to my blog and post them out through Twitter and Facebook. So apologies, but hopefully I'll be getting NBN on Thursday. So that should hopefully speed things up and make it a bit more easy to do Teach, Meet, Reach. Well, thanks guys for joining us tonight. Thank you to Steph and has dropped out, hasn't he? And Adam, thank you again for co-hosting tonight, and we'll see you guys next time for our next episode.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you, everyone.
See you later.
Thanks.